Hello, my name is Mr. Asprey and this is Edexcel International IGCSE paper 1HR from summer 2022. Now the great thing about Edexcel IGCSE is that they produce two sets of papers every single exam session. They produce 1H and 2H, which you sit if you're in the UK or anywhere in the sort of Western world. And they also produce 1HR and 2HR if you are living in like Singapore or somewhere in the Eastern world. So it's great, it means you've got loads of past papers to do, and these are exactly the same in terms of standard. So let's get into this one. Here we go. Right, first question. Probability. You've got a spinner. It says it's spun once. The probability lands on red or yellow or green or given in the table. Work out the probability it lands on red or yellow. Well, red or yellow are these two. And whenever you hear the word or in probability, it means you need to add them. So it's 0.25 plus 0.2, which is 0.45. Okay, next we're looking at spinning it 300 times, and it needs to work out the number of times it lands on purple. Okay, well purple in here is not known, we don't know how much that is, but what we do know is that they add all up to 1. So we do 0.25 plus 0.2 plus this unknown plus 0.2 for green, that equals 1. Okay, the ones we do know, 0.25 plus 0.2 plus 0.2 is 0.65. So 0.65 plus x equals 1. So x is equal to 1 minus 0.65, which is 0.35. Now, if you want to work out an estimate for the number of times a spinner lands on a particular event, then you take the number of times it's spun multiplied by the probability of it landing on that particular colour. So it's 300 multiplied by 0.35, and we get 105. Perfect. Next one is a bit of a weird one for a question 2. You've got these types of shelves R and S, and these two types of shelves are arranged into units, forming a sequence of patterns, and here are the first 3 in the sequence. And then the width of R is 2.4 and the width of S is 3.5. Work out the total width of shelving that has 6 R's. Okay, well let's look at the pattern. It's R, S, R, S, R, S, R, and the R's are at the end. So with the 6 R's, it would be R, S, R, S, R, S, R, S, R, S, R. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 R's. So it will be 6 times R, and then naturally there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 S's. There'll be 1 less S. So 5 times by S. So in this instance, well, R is 2.4, so we do 6 times 2.4, 6 times 2.4, and that gives us 14.4. And then for S, we do 5 times by 3.5. Oh, that's 17.5. Whoops, sorry. 5 times by 3.5, which is 17.5, and we just add the two together. And we get a total of 31.9. Okay, it then says that the shelving unit has n number of R shelves, so an unknown amount, and the total width of the shelving unit is W. Find an expression for W. Well, what did we do last time? We did R multiplied by the number of R's there are. So this would be, the number of R's is n, so it'll be n multiplied by how wide an R is, which was 2.4. And we've also got to add on the number of S's, and the number of S's is always going to be one less than the number of R's, as we kind of shown with this little diagram here. And that's multiplied by 3.5, because that's how wide the S is. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got 2.4n, multiplying out this bracket, 3.5n minus 1 times by 3.5 is 3.5. So in total, how many n's we've got? We've got 2.4 and we've got 3.5, which is 5.9. So we've got 5.9 times n and then minus 3.5. And that question is done. Okay, next question. It says each card has a number written on it. The mean of the 5 numbers is 12. Well, to work out the mean, we add up all of the numbers. Adding on minus 2 is the same as just minusing 2. And then we divide by the number of numbers. In this case, there were 5. And this gives me 12. Okay, so if all the numbers added together divided by 5 equals 12, then all the numbers added together should equal 5 times 12, which is 60. And if we look at these numbers here, we have 15 plus 7 minus 2 plus 23. That gives us a total of 43. So 43 plus this unknown number must equal 60. So taking away 43 from 60 leaves me with 17. So x is 17. Okay, next question is for 4 marks. It says the language department has a college, has 180 students, and each one studies exactly one, that's important, of French, German, Italian or Spanish. 15 students study French, 45% of the students study German. Okay, well let's figure out how many people study German then. So 45% of the total amount is equal to 45 over 100 is 45%, multiplied by 180, so 81 people do German. Express the percentage of students studying Italian or Spanish. Well, Italian or Spanish, so let's call that A or S, is equal to all of the students minus the ones who study French and German. So the people who do Italian or Spanish are all of the people minus the French and Germans, so that's 84. And now it wants that as a percentage of those studying French or German. Okay, so this is the number of people studying Italian or Spanish. French and German is 15 plus 81, which is 96. So to work out a percentage of one of the other, we want of the yellow over the blue. So we just do 84 over 96, times it by 100 to get it as a percentage. So 84 over 96 multiplied by 100, and we get 87.5%. Top tip, that feels right simply because I don't need to round it. And if I were to get a number which would need it to be rounded, say for example if it was something a bit more different, let's say if it was like this, and therefore the question would ask me to round it to a certain degree of significance. So that's a good tip to check to see if your answer is correct or not. Okay, next up we've got some routine algebra. I'm going to multiply out these brackets like this. So 3 times c to the 3 is 3c to the 4. Increase the power by 1 because we're timesing by c to the 1. And then times that by 4 is going to be 12c to the 3. Factorising this, I need to find two numbers which times together to make minus 9 and add together to make plus 8. Those two numbers are minus 1 and positive 9. That does the job. So you write x minus 1, x plus 9. And then, because we are asked to now solve this, we would put it into factorised form, set it equal to 0, and then one of these two brackets must equal 0. So either this equals 0, which gives me x equals 1, or this equals 0, which gives me x equals... So we have x equals minus 9. Perfect. Okay, next question is a classic fractions question. I am going to convert them into top-heavy fractions. So I'm going to do 2 times by 3, which gives me 6, and then plus on the 2 is going to give me 8. So it's 8 thirds. And here I will do 3 times by 4 gives me 12, and then plus on the 3 gives me 15, and those are quarters. We're adding those together, so the lowest common denominator is 12. I can get that by timesing this one by 3, so I must do the same to the top. And this one by 4, I must do the same to the top. So I get 8 times 4 is 32, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 15 is 45, and 4 times 3 is 12. Adding these together is going to give me 32 plus 45 is 77 over 12. And then how many 12s can I fit into 77? Well, I can do 77 divided by 12, and that tells me I can fit 6 in. And then what's left over? Well, I know that 6 times 12 is 72, so to make 77 I need 5 left over. And now, and only now, do I check to see if that is actually the answer I'm looking for. And yes, it is, so we have proved it. Okay, we've got a cylinder, and I can see that we've got the information shown in the diagram. We've also got the mass of the cylinder. It says work out the density. So I know I'm going to be needing to use the density, mass and volume triangle, which has mass at the top, D and V down the bottom. And then what I do next is I check to see, I want the density to be in grams per centimetres cubed. I've got centimetres here, which is good, but I've not got grams, I've got kilograms, so I'm going to have to change that. So in order for me to work out the density, I cover the density in the triangle, which tells me how to do mass over volume. So I write D is equal to M over V. The mass, I want it in grams, so I'm going to multiply by 1,000 to get 7040, because there are 1,000 grams in a kilogram. And that's over the centimetres cubed, so the volume. Okay, what is the volume? Well, the volume of a cylinder is the base area, which is pi r squared, multiplied by the height of the cylinder. And we have pi multiplied by the radius will be 9, because the diameter is 18, so we have to half it to get the radius, and the height is 3.5. So let's put that into our calculator. Let's do pi times 9 squared times by 3.5, and we get 890.6. So let's work out the density by doing the mass divided by the volume, which was my previous answer, so I'll press that to get the full accuracy. So two significant figures is 7.9. Okay, next question, we've got Jane buying a car for this amount, and it depreciates in value by 15% every year. So as soon as I see the word depreciates, I will write 100 minus the percentage, which is 15, divided by 100. And that gives me the multiplier that I'll need to use in order to, do the fraction button first, in order to solve this question. So this is going to give me 0.85. Okay, now how am I going to use it? It says work out the value of the car at the end of 4 years. Okay, so 4 years means I need to do that multiplier 4 times. So it will be the amount multiplied by that multiplier 4 times, and to do that I can just do to the power 4. So it's 18,000 times 0.85 to the power of 4. And we get to the nearest dollar, 9396. Perfect. Okay, tricky question with this. There's 2 different ways of doing it. I'm going to show you both ways and how they differ. First way is to minus 3 from both sides, which will give me 8, and then divide through by minus 4 will give me minus 2. But when you divide through by minus 4 or any negative or timesing by any negative, you have to flip the sign over. So the sign changes direction. Now, if you don't want to remember that, you don't need to. Instead, you can just move the 4x on the negative 4x to the other side and it'll be positive. So in doing so, this will give me positive 4x on this side, plus 11. We can minus 11 from both sides, which will give me minus 8 over here. And then we can divide through by 4 and we'll get this. Now these two are the same, so either of them is acceptable. It just depends what is your preference. Just remember, if you do divide or times by negative, you must flip the sign over. Okay, straight line, or equation of a straight line, you need m, which is the gradient, and c is the intercept. So pick a point, and then pick another point, and draw a right angle triangle, making sure that the points you do pick are literally, coordinates. Like for example, 2, 2, 4, 5. Don't go halfway between values. So that's 2 along, and then it's 3 up. So the gradient is the rise, so it's risen 3. Over the run, it's got a long 2, so it's 3 over 2, or 1.5. And the intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, in that case minus 1. So therefore we can say y is equal to 1.5x minus 1. Because again the c value was minus 1, because that's where it crosses the y-axis, so the intercept. Perfect. Okay, next question. We've got 2 right angle triangles. So straight away I'm thinking Pythagoras or maybe trigonometry. We've got 2 values given to us, this one and this one. And we're told the area of the whole shape is 31.5. So work out the length of AD. Okay, well the first length I can work out is AB, right here. Let's call it X. And this is a right angle triangle, so I know by Pythagoras the 2 short sides squared will equal the long side squared. So rearranging, I can subtract that 6 squared like that, and then I can square root, and that will give me the side length of X. So on my calculator I can do the square root of 7.5 squared minus 6 squared equals 4.5. So I can write in here, this is 4.5. Okay, that's a good start. Now what I can do is work out the area of this shape in here, this right angle triangle, because I now know the base and I know the height of the triangle. So I can say that A is equal to a half times by the base times by the height. So 0.5 times 6 times 4.5. And that gives me 13.5. Okay, so now I can work out the area of B, because the area of B will be the total area of the whole shape minus the area of A, which is 13.5. So I can do 31.5 minus 13.5, which gives me 18. Okay, great. And now I can work out this length here, AD, because I know the base of this triangle is 7.5. So if I times that by the height, let's call it H, that should give me B. Oh, sorry, once I've halved it, because obviously the area 18 is equal to a half times by the base times by the height. So a half of 7.5 is 3.75, so 18 is equal to 3.75 times H. So H is equal to 18 divided by 3.75. And that gives me 4.8. A good question that, and that was worth a whopping 6 marks. Very nice. Okay, next question. Work out the highest common factor. Well, I can do that by drawing a Venn diagram. And I can put what they share in the middle. So let's look at the 3's. And they both have 3 to the 2, so that goes in the middle. And let's look at the 5's. They both have just a single 5, so that can go in the middle. And if we look at the 7's, they both just have a single 7, so that goes in the middle. So the highest common factor is equal to 3 squared multiplied by 5 multiplied by 7. So it's what they share, so it's always the lowest power of a number they share will go in the middle, and multiplying them together will give you the highest common factor. Okay, now it says work out the value of p cubed times by q. Okay. So p cubed will be 3 cubed times 5 squared times 7 cubed, and then times that by q, which is 3 squared times 5 times 7 squared. Okay, now we're going to use the bracket rule for indices. Whenever I have a base, in this case 3, and then it's raised to a power of 3, and then that is in brackets raised to another power, I can multiply those two powers together. So this gives me 3 to the 9. Same with the 5's. 5 to the 2 to the 3 is the same as 5 to 2 times 3, which is 5 to the 6. And 7 to the 1 to the power of 3 is 7 to the 3. Okay, great. And now I can collect up the 3's. So I have to the 9 and to the 2. And when I multiply, I add the powers. So it's 3 to the 11. And the 5's, that is 6 and 1. So add those, gives me 5 to the 7. And finally the 7's, 3 and 2, which gives me 7 to the 5. Okay, next question, we have 15 bits of data. And we need to find the interquartile range. So we can take 15 and just add 1 to it, which gives me 16. And then I take 16 and I half it, that gives me 8. So the middle number is in the 8th position. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the median, it's in the middle. And we can check this because, well, yes, there are 7 to the left and there are 7 to the right. That's the middle number. And then what we need to do is find the middle number of the lower half. So just by inspection, I can see it must be 3 because it has 3 to the left and 3 to the right. And over here, it must be this number here, 12, because that has 3 to the left and 3 to the right. Great. So the interquartile range is the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. So in this case, it is 12 minus 3, so it is 9. Okay, classic simultaneous equation here. We're going to have to multiply both equations, and because the y's have got opposite signs, I find it easier to get those lined up and then add the two equations together. I think it's less likely to make mistakes. So I'm going to times this one by 3 and this one by 5. Okay, this is going to give me 9x minus 15y is equal to 75. And what the bottom one by 5 is going to give me 20x plus 15y is equal to 5 times 14 is 70. And now, because these signs are opposite, I can add the two equations, because a positive and a negative, when added together, will cancel out completely. This gives me 9 plus 20, which is easy to do, is 29. And then 70 plus 75 is 145. We divide through, so 145 divided by 29, which gives me 5. So x is 5. And then we look at either of these equations. I'm going to pick the bottom one. So I'll do 4 times by 5, because that's what x is, plus 3y equals 14. So 20 plus 3y equals 14. Subtract 20 from both sides. Gives me minus 6 over here. So y is equal to minus 2. Okay, next question. We have a classic circle theorem question. And the first thing I'm going to spot is that we have a cyclic quadrilateral, which means all 4 points of the quadrilateral are touching the edge of the circle. And that tells me that angles opposite one another in a cyclic quadrilateral add to 180. So I could do 180 minus 136, and that would be 44. And putting angles on your diagram is sufficient working, and you do get marks for it. Next, what we have is we have a diameter and a triangle inside that semicircle. And when we have this set up, that angle at the top there is always a right angle. So that's a right angle. Okay, and now let's actually read the question and see what they're asking us for. RPS, so RPS, so this angle in here. Okay, great. Well, I've got 3 angles inside that triangle now. So I know that 90 plus 44 plus our angle which we're looking for must add to 180. So let's do 90 plus 44 to get 134. So 134 plus x must equal 180. And let's take 134 away from 180 and we get 46. It doesn't ask me to give reasons, which it normally does, so we're good, we can move on. Okay, classic expanding question here. So what I'm going to do, I get rid of the first one, ignore that, and then just multiply these ones. So I'm going to get x times 3x, which is 3x squared, x times 1, which is 1x, 2 times 3x is 6x, and 2 times 1 is 2. We can simplify this by adding together those two x's in the middle. 1 plus 6 is 7. And then I can bring back my 3x minus 1, my 3x minus 1, and we can multiply along. So what I like to do is multiply everything by 3x in the right bracket, which is going to give me 3 times 3 is 9, x times x squared is x cubed, plus 21x squared plus 6x, and then I can multiply everything by the minus 1, which will give me minus 3x squared, and then we have minus 7x and minus 2. Okay, let's collect now. So we only have 1x cubed, so that's 9x cubed. We will have 2 lots of x squareds, there are 21 and minus 3, which makes plus 18. And then we'll look at the x's, of which there are 6 and minus 7, which makes a total of minus 1. And then finally we'll look at the constant term, which is minus 2. Okay, second part of the question. I need to raise this to the negative 2. So first off, the negative flips. So I can write this flipped over, and now not to the power of negative, but just to the power of positive. So that negative power just flips a fraction over, it takes the reciprocal. Now I need to square. But in fact, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to cancel, because I've just noticed that there is a factor of 2 on the top and bottom. So I can cancel that 8 for a 4, and I can cancel this 2 for a 1 by dividing the top and bottom there by 2. I can also cancel out an x. There's an x to the 1 there, which turns x to the 5 into x to the 4. Okay, so this is just going to be easier. It gives me 4y squared over 1x to the 4. But that still needs to be squared. Okay, let's square each term. So squaring the 4 gives me 16. Squaring the y squared, or y squared times y squared, is y to the 4. Or just simply timesing the two powers is going to give me 4. And then here, timesing the power of 4 and 2 is going to give me 8. So that's over x to the 8. Okay, next question, we have a parallelogram and we have the area of the parallelogram. Now whenever I see a parallelogram, I would just draw a line across here to split it into two congruent triangles. Now this triangle is much easier to deal with because you've got 2 out of the 3 sides. And you know the area must be 9 because the total area is 18 and these two triangles are equal. So I can remember my area of triangle formula, which looks like this. The area is equal to half AB sine C, where A and B are 2 sides, and the angle C is the angle in between the 2 sides. So I can write 9 is equal to a half times by 3.8 times by 6.1 times by sine of this angle. I can do some simplifying. A half times by 3.8 times by 6.1 gives me 11.59. So I can write 9 is equal to 11.59 sine of that angle. I can then divide through by that 11.59 and I get a value for sine. So 0.77, let's say 7, is equal to sine of C. So that angle is equal to sine to the minus 1, the inverse function of sine of that value. So I'll just do shift sine of the answer equals, and I get my angle 50.9. Okay, that's going to be really helpful for answering this question, because now what I need to do is use the cosine rule to find this side length here. So I'm going to relabel my triangle. I'm going to call this side length little a and this angle capital A. And I'm going to call these ones B and C. Now the reason why I know to use the cosine rule is because I have no angle and a opposite side pair. So I know this angle, but I don't know this opposite side. So I can't use the sine rule, which means I need to use the cosine rule for a non-right angle triangle, which this is. Okay, so I write that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a, as given in your formula sheet. So a squared is equal to 3.8 squared plus 6.1 squared minus 2 times 3.8 times 6.1 times cosine of 50.9. Okay, to the calculator. 3.8 squared plus 6.1 squared minus 2 times 3.8 times 6.1 times cosine of the previous answer equals. Okay, great. So that's a squared is 22.4. So a is the square root of 22.4. So square root of the answer, we get 4.74 to 3 sig fig. Perfect. Okay, next question. We've got a diagram that shows a cube with side lengths of 6. The midpoint is there of AB is T, and the midpoint V of CH. Work out the distance from T to V in a straight line through the cube. Okay, so I need to draw a line connecting the two of them first, like that. And then I draw a line vertically downwards, which hits the base like that. And then I draw a line connecting up the line I've just drawn to the line I first drew. And that's going to create a right angle right in there. Okay, so which side lengths do I know right off the bat? Well, I know this vertical height, because that's the height of the cube, so that's 6. I don't know the base of this triangle, so I'll need to draw another right angle triangle like this to work out that base. So looking at that green triangle I've just drawn, it's the corner of the base of the cube, which is obviously a square, which therefore has a right angle in it. And C to V is free, because it's half of the side, because V is the midpoint. And also, this other side here will also be free, because it's also at the midpoint. Great. So using Pythagoras' theorem, this side length, let's call it x down here, x here, is equal to the square root of 3 squared plus 3 squared, which is equal to the square root of 9 plus 9, which is equal to the square root of 18. Okay, I'll leave it like that. There's no need to simplify it just yet. Now let's look at the big blue triangle, which the line TV is what I'm actually trying to work out. And I have 6 here, and I have root 18 here. So TV is also a hypotenuse, so it's the square root of 6 squared plus root 18 squared. So TV is equal to the square root of 36, which is 6 squared, and then root 18 squared, well, the square and the root will cancel, so it's just 18. So 18 plus 36 is 54. And it wants it just like that, in that form, so I'm just going to leave it just like that. Perfect. Histogram, question 19. This is like a really tricky question. I've had to pause the video here and think about this one before getting stuck into it, because it looks tricky. Right, give it a go. Here we go. Right, so we know there are no trees less than 200 and greater than 800. The number of trees for which we have between 300 and 800 is 8 fewer than the number for 400 to. So let's do a bit of colouring here. So this is 8 fewer than this, which is that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've noticed that actually these boxes are quite nice and neat. They go through like whole lines, apart from these ones which cut the boxes in half, so that's not too bad to deal with. So in terms of yellow, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full boxes. And in terms of blue, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, a half and another half, so there are a total of 10 blue. Yeah, how am I going to write this? I don't know. 10. Okay, so that means there are 4 blue boxes more than yellow, and it says that the yellow is 8 fewer than the blue. So in terms of these boxes, we had an extra 4 boxes is equal to an extra 8 trees. So 1 box must equal 2 trees. Then it says work out an estimate for the number of trees in this part of the forest that have a height greater than 500. So I'm looking at all of this and all of this. So how many boxes do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. A half and a half, so that makes 5. A half and a half makes 6, and a half and a half makes 7. So we've got 7 boxes in that area. We know 1 box is 2 trees, so 7 boxes is equal to 14 trees. And that is our final answer. So we didn't use the frequency density there, we just used the fact that the frequency is the same as the area, and worked out areas and then solved the question. Question 20, we've got 2 similar statues, and it says the volume of statue B is 20% less than the volume of statue A. Okay, so to get from A to B, 20% less, so I have to multiply it by 0.8 because it's 20% less, and that's what that's the multiplier for a 20% decrease. Now that's the volume, so that's k cubed is the volume scale factor, and that's equal to 0.8. That's what I have to times by to move between them. So from there you can work out what k is, which is the linear scale factor, by taking the cube root of that 0.8. And that does not give you a nice number, but we'll keep it in our calculator and write it down so the examiner knows. And then what we'll do is we'll work out k squared, because that's what I'm going to need to move between areas. So I take that k value and I square it, and that gives me 0.86. So 2. So that means that if I'm moving between volumes, then I would use this scale factor, but if I'm moving between areas, I would use this scale factor. So obviously the area of A was still going to be bigger. So to get the area of B, I would multiply it by 0.862. So how much less is that? Well, if so it's 86% basically. So how much less is it from 100? So we'll take one whole and we'll subtract 0.862. So we'll do 1 minus that. That gives me 13.8 percent. To 3 significant figures. Perfect. Yeah, 13.8%. Okay, tricky third question, which is for 4 marks. First off, I've got a root 2 here, and I've got a root 8. Now, root 8 is 2 root 2. And you can check that out by just typing it into your calculator. It will tell you it's 2 root 2. And that's because root 8 is equal to root 4 times root 2, which is 2 root 2, because root 4 is just 2. So I'm going to write it all in terms of root 2's, and I'm also going to expand that bracket down the bottom, because it's a square bracket, which means I'm multiplying it by itself. So like this. So that's root 2 times root 2 is just 2. Root 2 times minus 1 is minus root 2, and minus 1 times root 2 is again minus root 2. And then minus 1 times minus 1 is plus 1. So this is going to give me 3 are the rational numbers, and we've got 2 negative root 2's, so negative 2 root 2. So that is on the bottom, so 3 negative 2 root 2. Okay, now I want to rationalise the denominator. So in order to do that, if I have a denominator which has a surd and a rational number in, I will need to multiply by the rational number and the surd, but swap the sign over. And I'll need to do that to both the top and the bottom in order to get my, my correct expression. Okay, so let's do this. So it's, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2 root 2 is 6 root 2. And going back the other way, I will get, again, another 6 root 2. and I'll get a 2 root 2 times 2 root 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, and root 2 times root 2 is 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. And all of these calculations, you can do them individually on your calculator if you're not sure. It will tell you what the answer is. Just make sure that you do each individual calculation so that the examiner knows that you're not just using your calculator for the whole thing. 3 times 3 is 9. Here we're going to get plus 6 root 2. Here we're going to get minus 6 root 2. And here we're going to get, again, 2 times 2 is 4. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. So 4 times 2 is 8, but there's a minus sign there, so it's minus 8. Okay, right, we're going to get lots of cancelling here. 6 root 2 minus 6 root 2, that cancels out completely. And 9 minus 8 is 1, and dividing through by 1 does not change the value at all. So the whole denominator is basically cancelled. And the numerator is 9 plus 8, which is 17. And we've got 6 root 2. We've got 6 root 2 plus 6 root 2, which is 12 root 2. And we're still not done because they want it just in terms of a single surd. And this is, again, to guard against people using their calculators. So, well, what is 12? Well, 12 is the square root of 144. And now that we've got two surds times together like that, we can just times the numbers underneath the surds together, and 144 times 2 is 288. And now we're done. Okay, question 22, and we have a sketch of part of the curve of this, where p is a positive constant. It says for all values of p, the curve has exactly one turning point, and this turning point is a minimum, and it's shown here at the point t. And it says for the curve where the t x-coordinate is minus 3, find the value of p. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write this in a form which I can differentiate it. And because we're dividing here by x, we've got an x on the bottom. That's the same as writing x to the power of minus 1. Okay. Now we can differentiate. And I know I'm differentiated because of the word turning point and the word minimum. These are clues that I need to differentiate to find the turning point. So differentiating that, I write dy by dx is equal to, the 2 comes down times by the 1 at the front, I guess, and then x, and I drop the power down from 2 to 1. Here, minus 1 times by that negative at the front becomes plus, and we have p x to the minus 2 now. And we know that this is equal to 0 when the x-coordinate is at a minimum point or a maximum point, so when the x-coordinate is minus 3. So I know that when I sub in minus 3, like this, it should equal 0. The gradient is 0 because we've got a flat tangent and there is a turning point. Right, so 2 times minus 3 is minus 6. P, and then minus 3 to the minus 2. Well, if you're not sure, you can put it into your calculator. But that is going to give us 1/9. So minus 6 plus p times by 1/9 is equal to 0. Multiply everything by 9 gives me minus 54 plus a 9th times 9 is just 1, so it's just p. So therefore p is equal to 54. Okay, great. There is a second part of the question, and it says the line with equation y equals k, so those are horizontal lines, is a tangent to the curve with this equation. So when p is 16, find the value of k. Okay, I'm going to go back up to here. So again, we're going to have a tangent which is going to be a horizontal line, so that's the only place where this y equals k line can be. So this again is where the turning point exists, so where the gradient is equal to 0. Now we've already differentiated the gradient, and we want to set it equal to 0, but this time we know what the p-value is. We know it's 16, because in the question it tells us that we're over 16, we're 16 there, and that's the p-value. Okay, so we write that 2x plus 16x to the minus 2, so again that's just the derivative but with p substituted for 16, and we want that to equal 0 because we're again inspecting this turning point where the gradient is 0. Okay, great. The next thing we're going to do, and that's not particularly obvious, but because we've got a negative power of x, we're going to multiply through by that power but the positive version. So this will give me 2x to the 3, because x to the 1 times x to the 2 is x to the 3, and this x to the 2 and the x to the minus 2 will cancel, so it's just plus 16, that equals 0. Divide through by 2 gives me this, minus the 8 to the other side, and because we're cube rooting that is fine, because the cube root of minus 8 is minus 2. So x equals minus 2. At this particular point here, we have x equals minus 2. But we need to work out the y value at that particular point. So we need to go back to our original equation, which is this one, and sub in minus 2. So I'm going to do that down here. So I now know that x equals minus 2. Sub it into this equation for y. I get y is equal to minus 2 squared minus 16 over minus 2. That can just go straight in the calculator. Minus 16 over minus 2, and we get 12. So the y coordinate is 12, so therefore that horizontal line must be y equals 12, so therefore k must equal 12. Bosh. Okay, we've got a classic, just complete the square here, so no frills or anything like that, just literally complete the square. So we can take out a 2 because it's 2x squared, which gives me x squared minus 6x, and then I'm going to close the bracket and I'm going to add 3 outside. So I only like taking out a factor of the first 2 terms and just leaving the constant term outside the bracket. I think it's the easiest way. Okay, completing the square is all about this term here, the x term. I need to take that term and I need to half it. And when I half it, that gives me minus 3, so I write x minus 3 squared minus, always minus, and then minus 3 squared. And then all I need to do is just to multiply back through the bracket. So that's 2 lots of this bracket here. I've got minus 3 squared is 9, but there's a minus sign there. There's always a minus sign there. So that's minus 9, times it by 2, that's minus 18. And then add on the 3, which is hanging outside the bracket. So my final answer is 2 lots of x minus 3 squared minus 15. Perfect. Okay, so it says the curve of this equation, the point M is the minimum point on C. Find the coordinates of M. Right, so this is very similar to that, isn't it? It's very similar. The only difference is that the x has been replaced with an x plus 4. So therefore, my new curve is very similar to this, but I just need to replace the x with an x plus 4. So I would write that out. I'd write 2 lots of, and now instead of writing x, I need to write x plus 4. So it's x plus 4, and then minus 3, and then squared minus 15. So simplifying this is going to give me 2 lots of x plus 1 squared. And how do I work out the minimum point? Because this is y equals, because it's a curve. The minimum point occurs when this bracket is equal to 0. Because it's a square bracket, it can never be negative. So the smallest it could be is 0. So the x value which makes this bracket 0 is minus 1. And when this bracket is 0, I'm just left with, well, the whole bracket will be 0, so I'll be left with y equals minus 15. So the y coordinate is minus 15. So the coordinates of M are minus 1, minus 15. Okay, if Elliot has x counters, each counter has one red face and one green face. Elliot spreads the counters on the table and he sees the number of counters showing a red face is 5. He then picks one counter and turns it over. Then he picks a second counter and turns that over. The probability there are still 5 counters showing red is 19 over 32. Find the value of x. Right, first off, the first pick, there are 2 options. He could either pick a red or he could pick a green. Now, what's the chance of picking a red? Well, there are 5 reds available, or there are 5 reds showing at the start, as it says, and there's total of x counted, so it's 5 over x. And if there are 5 showing, and there are x in total showing red, then how many greens will there be? Well, there'll be the difference between x and 5, which will be x minus 5. And that will be over x, because again there are x counters in the bag. Okay, now we need to look for the second pick. So second pick, again it could be red or green. Now if I picked a red, then there's one less red to pick from. So that'll be 4 over x. If I picked a red, then I flipped it over, which has turned it green, which means there's now an extra green to pick from. So before there were x minus 5, I need to add 1 to that, so it's x minus 4, and again over x. Okay, great. And now if I picked a green, then that would have flipped over one of the greens to turn it red, which means there are now 6 reds to pick from. And again over x, because the number of counters doesn't change. You don't take any away, you just flip them over, so it's still over x. And if I've picked a green, then that means there is 1 less green in order for me to pick next time, so it's x minus 6 over x. Okay, now which are the ones which we are interested in? Well, we want there still to be 5 red counters in the bag, on the table, sorry. So the only way that can happen is if we picked a red, flipped it over, then picked a green and flipped it back. Or picked a green, flipped it over, then picked a red and flipped it back. So those are the only ways you're going to get back to where you started, picking a red then green or a green then red. Okay, now comes the algebra. In order to work out probability of a branch, we multiply that along that branch. So the first one will give me this. And because there are 2 options, we will add those 2 options together because both of them give us success. And that will give me my total probability. So I multiply along this branch as well, and that will give me 19 over 32. Okay, great. Now let's do the multiplication. So this is going to give me 5 lots of x minus 4 over x squared. And this is going to give me 6 lots of x minus 5 over x squared. And that's going to equal 19 over 32. I can multiply each term by x squared, which will cancel an x squared, and make an x squared up here. I can then multiply out these brackets. I will get a 5x minus 20, and I will get a 6x minus 30. So in total I've got 5x and 6x, which makes 11x. And I have minus 20 and minus 30, which is minus 50. And that's equal to 19 over 32x squared. Okay, next I can multiply each term through by 32. So 11 times 32 is 352. So it's 352x. 50 times 32 is 1600, so minus 1600, and that's equal to 19x squared. We can move everything over to the right side to get 19x squared minus 352x and plus 1600. Now this is a tricky quadratic, very tricky one to solve via factorization. So I'm going to show you a little trick which you can use in your exam. You can go to equation, polynomial, degree 2, and you can type 19 minus 352 for the x and plus 1600. And this gives me one answer and two answers. Okay, so let's start with the second answer here. So I know that one of my answers is going to be x is equal to 8. And then I can work backwards by subtracting 8 from both sides, like this, so that I have 0 on the right. And this tells me that x minus 8 is one of the factors of my quadratic. Okay, let's do that for the other one as well. It's a bit trickier, this one, but x is equal to 200 over 19. So x is equal to 200 over 19. I could times both sides by 19 to get 19x equals 200. I could minus the 200, so it equals 0. And then one of my brackets is now 19x minus 200. And there we go, I factorised that quadratic without actually factorising it and using my calculator to kind of cheat. And now what we need to do is we need to select the correct answer, because it does say work out the value of x, not values. And we will reject this one because there must be an integer number of counters on the table. Okay, final question. The sum of the first 10 terms of an arithmetic sequence is 4 times the sum of the first 15 terms of the same series. Okay, let's use that information. So we know our formula for the summation is n over 2, 2a plus n minus 1d. And the first 10 terms, so 10 over 2, open brackets, 2a, we don't know what a is yet, plus n minus 1 is 10 minus 1, which is 9, so 9d. And that's equal to, so is, 4 times, so 4 times the sum of the first 5. So that's 5 over 2, 2a plus n minus 1 is 5 minus 1, which is 4, so 4d. And let's simplify this a little bit, because on both sides we have that's times by 5, 10 over 2 is 5. And here we're timesing by 5 as well. So we can cancel those out. That's a times by 5 and that's a times by 5. So all we have left is 2a plus 9d. And over here we've got 4 times by 1 over 2, which is a half, and 4 times a half is 2. So that's 2 lots of 2a plus 4d. Okay, we can simplify this further to get an expression all in terms of a's and d's. And then we can minus 8d from both sides. And we can minus 2a from both sides, so we get that d is equal to 2a. Right, and all that came from that first line of information. So now let's use the second line of information. And for that I need the nth term formula. So the nth term formula is an is equal to a plus n minus 1d. Now you're not given this one, so it's a really important one to remember. So that tells me that the 8th term in the sequence is equal to the first term plus n minus 1, so 8 minus 1 is 7, d, and we're told that that is equal to 45. Okay, great. That's about as simple as that can get. So that has now given me another equation. And now let's actually read the question. And it says find the first term in the series. So the first term is the a value. So let's take this equation here, and it tells me that a plus 7d is equal to 45. So a plus, well, I know that d is 2a, so 7 lots of d is the same as 7 lots of 2a. So this gives me 1a plus 14a equals 45, so 15a equals 45, so a equals 3. And there is the first term in the series. And we're done. Please do subscribe, hit that button below if you found it useful. That would be really helpful for me. And also, I've got more videos on IGCSE, no, that way. More videos on IGCSE, so do watch those. I've got one video where I go through the whole IGCSE, and I've got other videos where I go through every single topic using exam questions. Hope you enjoyed that. Bye for now. Thanks very much.